The coffee tastes like pennies and ash. I'm holding the paper cup between both hands even though it's June, and the subway platform is sweltering. Steam rises from the plastic lid, and somewhere behind me, a busker is playing Autumn Leaves on a saxophone that's missing at least one key. The notes come out strangled and wrong, and I should hate it, but I don't. I can't. My hands are shaking. 23 years old. That's what the license says when I check it for the fourth time, thumbing the edge until it threatens to bend. The photo is me but younger, cheeks still round with adolescent fat, haircut in that unfortunate style I thought made me look like Brad Pitt, but actually made me look like a lesbian tennis coach. The expiration date reads 2009. 2009, I drop the coffee. It hits the platform and explodes in a burst of brown liquid that splashes across my sneakers. Converse All-Stars, cherry red, the ones I wore until the soles fell off. The ones I haven't owned in 15 years. A woman in a business suit jumps back, shooting me a glare that could peel paint. Jesus Christ, watch it. Sorry, I say automatically, but my voice comes out strange. Higher. Unscarred by the decade and a half of cigarettes I picked up after she left, the whiskey I drank to forget her, the screaming matches with landlords and bill collectors, and everyone else who came knocking after I had nothing left to give. The saxophone player transitions into summertime, and my knees buckle. I know this song. I know this moment. The platform is crowded with the usual June morning chaos. Tourists with maps, commuters with dead eyes, students heading to summer classes at NYU or Columbia. I steady myself against a pillar, and the metal is warm under my palm, heated by bodies and breath and the electric third rail humming somewhere below. I need to move, need to get on the train. But my feet won't obey because I'm staring at the advertisements plastered across the curved tunnel wall, and they're selling things that don't exist anymore. Flip phones, Blockbuster Video, a Lehman Brothers investment seminar, Lehman Brothers. The F train arrives with a shriek of brakes and a blast of air that smells like brake dust and human sweat, and that particular funk of the underground that you never get used to but learn to ignore. Doors open, people push. I let myself be carried forward by the crowd, swept into the car like debris in a flood. I find a seat between a man reading the Post and a teenage girl with earbuds trailing white cords to an iPod clipped to her jeans. An iPod, not even an iPhone, just that little rectangle of brushed metal that held 1,000 songs and nothing else. The train lurches forward. I close my eyes. This isn't happening, but I can feel it in my bones, in my blood, in the way my body fits inside this skin. Younger skin, stronger skin, skin that hasn't been hollowed out by stress and poverty, and sleeping in a car for 3 months because I couldn't afford first and last month's rent anywhere in the 5 boroughs. I'm 23, and it's June 15th, 2009, and in approximately 2 hours, I'm supposed to meet Vanessa at the lawyer's office to sign over my lease. The lease? My stomach drops like I've missed a step in the dark. A 4C at 247 East 3rd Street. Rent-controlled since 1974, inherited from my grandmother when she died 6 months ago. 6 months ago now. 15 years ago then. The timeline's tangling in my head like fishing line. $472 a month for a 1-bedroom with original hardwood floors and a bathtub in the kitchen and windows that face the street so you can watch the whole neighborhood live their lives. $472. In 2024, that same apartment, if you could even find it, would cost $3,000. Maybe $4,000. Maybe more. And I gave it up. Gave it to her. The train squeals into West 4th Street, and I'm up and moving before I realize what I'm doing. Pushing through the crowd, mumbling apologies, hitting the platform as the doors start to close. A businessman curses when I step on his foot. I don't care. I'm climbing the stairs 2 at a time, emerging into Washington Square Park, where the arch is still covered in scaffolding from restoration work, where students are sprawled on the grass with textbooks and hacky sacks, and that peculiar laziness of people who don't yet know that time is the only currency that matters. I walk south on Thompson, then east on Bleecker, navigating by muscle memory through streets that are familiar but wrong. The falafel place on the corner is still called Mamoun's, not whatever corporate chain replaced it. The record store still sells records. The people are dressed in skinny jeans and Converse and band t-shirts, not the algorithmic optimization of athleisure and personal branding that everyone wears in the future. Christ. I stop in the middle of the sidewalk, and a bike messenger swerves around me with a shout that I barely hear because my hands are pressed against my face, and I'm breathing hard, too hard, the way I used to before I learned to manage the panic attacks. Is this a panic attack? Or is this real? A smell hits me, strong and immediate and so perfectly right that I almost sob. Garlic and tomato and basil, the summer smell of Little Italy bleeding over from Mulberry Street. There's a restaurant on the corner, one of those old school places with checkered tablecloths and candles in Chianti bottles, and they're prepping for lunch service. The door is propped open, and I can see the cooks inside, white aprons shouting in Italian, tossing something in a pan that sends up a plume of aromatic smoke. I haven't smelled this in 15 years, because in 15 years, in my time, my life, the one I lived before this restaurant burned down, electrical fire, 3 dead. The building was condemned, torn down, replaced with luxury condos that rent for $8,000 a month. But right now, in this moment, it's here, alive, real. Which means this is real. I'm really here. I've gone back. The lawyer's office is in a building on Canal Street that smells like mothballs and industrial carpet cleaner. I'm standing outside watching the secondhand tick around the colo, face of a bank across the street, trying to decide if I'm going to go inside or run. In my pocket, my phone buzzes. Not a smartphone, a flip phone, a Samsung something or other with a cracked screen and a ringtone that's the factory default because I never bothered to change it. I know who it is without looking. Vanessa. The name alone makes my throat tight. I pull out the phone, flip it open. The screen is tiny, grainy, beautiful in its simplicity. One text message. Where are you, babe? Lawyer's office, 2nd floor. Hurry! No autocorrect, no emojis, just words and abbreviated casualness, the texting language of 2009 before everyone became poets and comedians, in 280 characters. I could ignore it. I could throw the phone in the nearest trash can and walk away and never see her again. But that's not how this works, is it? If I've learned anything in the life I've already lived, it's that running doesn't change the pattern, it just moves it somewhere else. I need to see her, need to see if she's the same, if I remember her right, if the person I spent 15 years hating is the person she actually was, or just the person my memory made her into. The building's lobby is all faded marble and brass fixtures that haven't been polished since the Koch administration. The elevator is a cage affair with an accordion gate that requires manual closing. I step inside, pull the gate shut, press the button for the 2nd floor. The machinery groans and starts to rise, and I'm enclosed in this tiny space with my own reflection in the scratched brass panel, and I look so young. No lines around my eyes, no gray in my hair, no permanent furrow between my eyebrows from years of squinting at bills I couldn't pay, and eviction notices and final warnings. I look like someone who still has potential. The elevator shudders to a stop. I open the gate and step into a hallway that's dimmer than the lobby, lit by fluorescent tubes that buzz like dying insects. Suite 204. The door is frosted glass with gold lettering. Steinberg and Associates, attorneys at law. I can see her shadow through the glass. She's pacing. I can tell by the way the shadow moves. Back and forth, the distinctive click of her heels on the tile floor inside. She always paced when she was nervous. I'd forgotten that. Funny how you forget the small things, the habits and gestures, until you see them again and it all comes flooding back like a wound reopening. I put my hand on the doorknob, brass, warm from the heat of the building, from the touch of 1,000 hands before mine. You don't have to do this, a voice in my head says. You can turn around, you can walk away, you can keep the apartment and let her figure it out on her own. But that's revenge, isn't it? And I've never been good at revenge. I'm too curious. No, too sentimental, too stupidly optimistic. Even after everything that happened, everything she did. I need to understand why. I open the door. The office is exactly as I remember it. Wood paneling, leather chairs, a desk the size of a dinner table with a brass nameplate that reads, Morris Steinberg, Esquire. Behind the desk, Morris himself, 60-something, bad comb-over, glasses on a chain around his neck, is shuffling papers with the resigned efficiency of a man who's been doing this job for 30 years and will do it for 30 more. And in front of the desk, perched on the edge of one of the leather chairs like a bird ready to take flight, is Vanessa. She looks up when I enter, and the smile that breaks across her face is so genuine, so unguarded, so full of relief and affection that I actually stop walking. This is the Vanessa from before. Before the arguments, before the betrayal, before she kicked me out of my own apartment and changed the locks and refused to answer my calls while I slept in my car and applied for jobs at Starbucks because I couldn't afford rent anywhere else. This is the Vanessa I fell in love with. Finally, she says, standing up, and she's wearing that sundress I always loved, the yellow one with the little flowers, the one that made her look like summer incarnate. Her hair is longer than I remember, curling at the ends, and she's not wearing makeup because she never wore makeup back then, back when she was still in grad school and studying poetry and believed that authenticity mattered more than appearance. She crosses the room and takes my hand, and her skin is soft, warm, exactly as I remember. "You okay?" she asks, looking up at me with those dark eyes that I used to think could see straight through me. "You look weird." "I'm fine," I say automatically. "You're sweating." "It's hot outside." "You took the train?" "Yeah." "I could have picked you up. I texted you like 4 times. "I know, sorry, I trail off because I don't have a good excuse. Not one that makes sense, not one that doesn't sound insane. She squeezes my hand. "It's okay. I'm nervous too." Nervous. Right, because in this timeline, in this moment, we're both supposed to be excited. We're taking the next step, moving in together, officially, legally. She's giving up her overpriced studio in Brooklyn, and I'm signing over the lease to my grandmother's apartment because the building doesn't allow 2 names on a rent-controlled lease, and Vanessa needs it more than I do. Oh, that's what I told myself anyway. That's what she told me. "Mr. Chen?" Morris says from behind his desk, not looking up from his papers. "Good of you to join us, please. Sit down. Let's get this over with." "I have a lunch at 1. I sit. Vanessa sits next to me, still holding my hand, and I can smell her perfume. Something light and citrusy, the kind she bought at the drugstore because she was broke and paying off student loans and could barely afford groceries, let alone designer fragrances. Morris slides a stack of papers across the desk. "Standard lease assignment," he says in the tone of a man who's explained this 1,000 times. "You're transferring all rights and responsibilities of the rent-controlled apartment at 247 East 3rd Street, Unit 4C, to Miss Vanessa Torres. She assumes the lease in its entirety, including the current rent of $472 per month. You'll need to sign here, here, and here." He taps 3 places on the document with his pen. Vanessa is looking at me, waiting. The papers are in front of me. All I have to do is sign. In my first life, I signed. I signed because I loved her, because I thought we were building something together, because the apartment was rent-controlled and I could always find another place, couldn't I? I was young and strong and employable. I'd figure it out. Except I didn't. Because 3 months later, Vanessa met someone else, a poet from her MFA program, someone with better prospects, better connections, a trust fund that paid for his art. And when I came home one day, my key didn't work. The locks were changed. My stuff was in boxes in the hallway, and there was a note taped to the door. "We're done. Don't contact me. The apartment is mine now. I spent 2 years fighting her in housing court. Lost. Spent another 3 years trying to find affordable housing in a city that had decided people like me, working class, no college degree, no wealthy parents, didn't deserve to live there anymore. By 2015, I was in New Jersey, sharing a basement with 2 other people, commuting 3 hours a day to a job that paid $12 an hour. By 2020, I'd given up entirely. But that hasn't happened yet. That's the future. The other timeline. The life I don't have to live anymore." I pick up the pen. Vanessa's hand tightens on mine. Morris is checking his watch. And I'm staring at the signature line, at the blank space where my name is supposed to go. And I'm thinking about all the things I could say right now. All the ways I could warn my younger self. All the futures I could prevent. But what I say instead is, "I need to use the bathroom." Morris sighs. "Down the hall, first door on the left." I stand up, and Vanessa's hand slips from mine, and I can feel her confusion, her concern like a physical presence in the room. "You okay?" she asks again. "Yeah, just need a minute?" I walk out of the office, down the hallway, past the bathroom, which I don't actually need, and into the stairwell at the end of the hall. The door closes behind me with a heavy click, and I'm alone in the concrete and metal silence of the emergency exit. I sit down on the steps, put my head in my hands, and try to figure out what the fuck I'm supposed to do. The stairwell is cool and quiet, insulated from the noise of the street by layers of concrete and old building. I can hear my own breathing, too fast, too shallow, can feel the flutter of my heart against my ribs like a trapped bird. I'm 23 years old. I have $472 in my checking account. I work part-time at a bookstore in the East Village that pays $9 an hour under the table because my manager doesn't want to deal with payroll taxes. I am, by any reasonable measure, fucked. But I'm 23 and rent-controlled in New York City, which means I'm actually one of the lucky ones. Which means I'm sitting on an asset that will only become more valuable as the years go by and the city gets more expensive and the people who built this place are pushed further and further to the margins until there's nothing left but glass towers and trust fund kids playing at poverty. If I keep this apartment, I have a chance. If I give it to Vanessa, I have nothing. The math is simple. The decision should be simple. But nothing is simple when you're 23. And in love and convinced that love is enough, that it can overcome economics and circumstance, and the fundamental truth that people change, that promises break, that the person you think you know is just a story you're telling yourself. I pull out my phone, flip it open. Stare at the tiny screen with its tiny icons and its total absence of social media apps because Twitter is still just a place where people post what they had for lunch, and Facebook requires a college email address. And Instagram doesn't exist yet. 2009, the world is about to end in 1,000 small ways, and nobody knows it yet. The recession is here, but people still think it's temporary. The housing market crashed, but real estate in New York is different, isn't it? It always bounces back. The jobs are disappearing, but new ones will come. They have to, because this is America, and America always figures it out. Except it doesn't. Not for people like me. Not for people who make the wrong choices at the wrong time and spend the rest of their lives paying for it. The stairwell door opens above me, and I look up expecting Morris or Vanessa, but it's neither. It's a woman I don't recognize. 50-something, gray hair, business suit, carrying a briefcase and descending the stairs with the determined clip of someone who's late for something important. She glances at me as she passes. "You all right, hun?" "Yeah, just needed some air." "In the stairwell?" "Everywhere else was taken." She laughs, a short barking sound. "Tell me about it. This whole city's taken. You know what I pay for a one-bedroom in Astoria? $2,000? $2,000? For Astoria. My parents paid $300 for a brownstone in Park Slope. You believe that?" She keeps walking, disappearing around the bend in the stairs, her voice echoing up. "Good luck with whatever you're running from, hun." We're all running from something. The door at the bottom clangs shut, and I'm alone again. $2,000 for Astoria. In 2024, that same apartment would be $3,000, maybe $3,500. The numbers spiral in my head, compounding like interest, like cancer, like inevitability. I stand up, dust off my jeans, head back to the office. When I walk in, Vanessa is on her phone, texting someone, her thumbs moving over the tiny keyboard with practiced ease. She looks up, smiles, puts the phone away. "You okay?" she asks for the third time, and I'm starting to think that's going to be the defining question of this day, this life, this whole strange second chance. "Yeah," I say. "I'm good." Morris looks up from his papers. "Shall we?" I sit down, pick up the pen, look at the signature line. Too low, $472 a month. That's what my grandmother paid. That's what I'm paying. That's what Vanessa will pay if I sign this. And then, in 3 months, she'll kick me out, and I'll have nothing. And she'll have everything. And I'll spend the next 15 years learning exactly how much that costs. Or I can say no. I can keep the apartment. I can tell her I changed my mind, that I'm sorry, that I love her, but I can't do this. And then what? She'll be hurt. Angry. She'll ask why, and what am I supposed to say? Because in 3 months you're going to betray me, and I've already lived through it once, and I'm not going to make the same mistake twice? She'll think I'm crazy. Hell, maybe I am crazy. Maybe this is all a delusion, a breakdown, a dying hallucination in the moment before the real end. But my hand is on the pen, and the pen is real, and the paper is real, and Vanessa is looking at me with those eyes that I loved and hated and mourned for 15 years. "David," she says softly, "you're scaring me." "I can't do this," I say. The words are out before I can stop them. Morris looks up sharply. Vanessa goes very still. "What?" she says. "I can't sign the lease over. I'm sorry, I changed my mind." The silence in the room is so complete that I can hear the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, can hear the traffic on Canal Street 7 floors below, can hear the blood rushing in my ears like a freight train. Vanessa's face goes through a series of expressions: confusion, hurt, disbelief, anger, all in the space of about 3 seconds. "You're joking," she says. "I'm not. We talked about this. We agreed." "I know. I gave up my apartment. I told my landlord I'm leaving. I have to be out in 2 weeks." "I know." "So what the fuck, David?" Morris clears his throat. "Perhaps you two need to discuss this privately." "No," Vanessa snaps, not taking her eyes off me. "We're going to discuss it right here, right now, because I don't understand what's happening." I set down the pen, carefully, like it's a loaded gun. "I've been thinking about it," I say, which is both true and a lie. "And I don't think it's a good idea. The apartment is rent-controlled. If I give it up, I'll never be able to afford anything like it again. And you have your degree, you have prospects, you can get a better job. Are you fucking kidding me right now?" "I'm just being practical." "Practical?" She stands up so fast her chair scrapes across the floor. You told me you loved me. You told me we were going to build a life together. You said the apartment didn't matter because we'd have each other." "I know what I said." "So what changed?" "Everything," I want to say. "I lived a whole other life where you destroyed me, and I'm not going to let that happen again. But what I say instead is, I'm sorry." She stares at me for a long moment, and I can see the exact instant when her feelings for me curdle into something else, something harder, something that will carry her through the next months and years when she needs to tell people what an asshole I am, what a selfish, cold-hearted bastard I turned out to be. "You know what?" she says quietly. "Fuck you, David. Fuck you and your grandmother's apartment and your poor boy martyr complex. I don't need you. I don't need any of this." She grabs her purse off the chair, and she's heading for the door. And part of me wants to call after her, wants to stop her, wants to explain, but I don't. I let her go. The door slams hard enough to rattle the frosted glass. Morris looks at me over the top of his glasses. "Well," he says, "that went well?" I walk back to the apartment alone, taking the long way through the East Village because I need to move, need to think, need to do something with the adrenaline that's still coursing through my system like poison. The streets are crowded with the afternoon lunch rush, office workers grabbing sandwiches, students cutting class, tourists with cameras and confused expressions. I pass a hot dog cart, a guy selling bootleg DVDs out of a duffel bag, a homeless woman asking for change in a voice that's gone hoarse from asking. Everything is familiar and strange at once. The storefronts are different. The people are dressed in styles that I remember but haven't seen in years. Skinny jeans and Converse and those stupid trucker hats that were inexplicably popular for about 18 months. But underneath it all, the city is the same smell of garbage and exhaust and something indefinably urban. The same energy, that electric current of ambition and desperation that runs through New York like a third rail. The same promise that anything is possible if you just work hard enough, want it bad enough, sacrifice enough of yourself on the altar of making it. I believed that once. Then I learned better. 247 East 3rd Street is a 5-story walk-up sandwiched between a Polish restaurant and a bodega run by a Yemeni family. The building is pre-war, which is realtor speak for old as shit, but we can charge more for it because it has character. The front door sticks, requiring a specific combination of pushing and jiggling that I learned from my grandmother and never forgot. Inside, the hallway smells like cooking. Garlic and onions and something else. Something spicy that I can't identify. Mrs. Kowalski is making dinner. She always starts around 4, and the smell permeates the entire building until you're not sure if you're hungry or nauseated. I climb the stairs to the 4th floor, my hand on the banister that's been worn smooth by 100 years of hands before mine. 4C? The door is painted green, a color I chose last month. last month now, 15 years ago then, because it reminded me of my grandmother's garden in the house she had before she moved to the city. I unlock it and step inside. The apartment is a time capsule. Everything is exactly as I remember it from this period of my life. The futon I bought from a guy on Craigslist, the milk crates serving as bookshelves, the posters on the wall, Pulp Fiction, The Shawshank Redemption, a Rothko print I got at the MoMA gift shop. The hardwood floors are scuffed but beautiful. The bathtub is in the kitchen, covered with a wooden board that serves as a counter. The windows face the street, and afternoon light is streaming in, turning everything golden. $472 a month. I walk to the window and look out at the street below. There's a group of kids playing stickball, a couple arguing in Spanish, a guy walking 3 dogs that are pulling him in different directions. This is my neighborhood. This is my home, and I just destroyed my relationship to keep it. I pull up my phone. 15 missed calls from Vanessa, 12 text messages, each one angrier than the last. The final one reads, "I hope that apartment is worth it because you just lost the best thing that ever happened to you." I close the phone without responding. Because the thing is, she's wrong. The apartment is worth it. Not because of the money, though that's part of it. Not because of the principal, though that's part of it too. But because in my first life, giving up this apartment meant giving up everything else. My stability, my security, my sense of place in the world. Once I lost the apartment, I lost my footing in the city, and once I lost that, I spent 15 years sliding downward, grasping at anything that might slow the fall. This apartment is the difference between making it and not making it. This apartment is survival. And Vanessa, beautiful, talented, manipulative Vanessa, was always going to leave me anyway. At least this way, I'm the one who does the leaving first. The first week is the hardest. I keep expecting her to show up at my door, to call and apologize, to tell me she understands why I did what I did and we can work it out. But she doesn't. Instead, I see her posting on Facebook. Yes, Facebook, that quaint artifact of 2009 social media. Photos of her new apartment. A studio in Williamsburg. Small but trendy, exposed brick, plants in the windows, $1,200 a month, which is absurd. Which is highway robbery, which is exactly what I would have been paying if I'd given up my grandmother's place. She looks happy in the photos, or at least she looks like someone performing happiness for an audience. I can't tell the difference anymore. I delete Facebook from my phone, throw myself into work, pick up extra shifts at the bookstore, start looking for a better job, something that pays more than $9 an hour, something with benefits and a 401k and all those markers of adult stability that I failed to achieve the first time around. The city is still in the grip of the recession. Jobs are scarce, but I have something most people don't have. I know what's coming. I know which companies are about to fail and which ones are about to succeed. I know that Apple is going to release the iPad next year and change everything. I know that Bitcoin is going to be worth something eventually, though I can't remember exactly when or how much. I know that real estate is going to crash further before it recovers, and when it recovers, it's going to be worse than before. More expensive, more exclusionary, more impossible. The question is, what do I do with that knowledge? I'm 23 years old with a high school diploma and no college degree, and no connections and no money beyond the $400 in my checking account. I can't exactly walk into a venture capital office and say, "Hey, I'm from the future, invest in these companies." I need a plan. I need strategy. I need to be smarter this time around. On a Tuesday evening in late June, I'm shelving books in the history section when my manager, a guy named Rick, who's been running this store since the 80s and treats it like a sacred trust, comes over with a box. "New delivery," he says. "Put these in the window display." I look at the books. They're all about the recession. Titles like The Big Short and Too Big to Fail and House of Cards. Rick has organized them into a display about economic collapse, which is darkly funny in a way I'm not sure he intends. "You think people want to read about this stuff?" I ask. Rick shrugs. "People always want to understand why their lives are falling apart. Makes them feel less alone." He walks away, leaving me with the box of books about failure. I start unpacking them, and one catches my eye. The Black Swan by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. It's about unpredictable events and how they shape history. about how the things we think are impossible happen all the time, and how most of our planning is useless because we're always preparing for the last disaster instead of the next one. I've read this book before, in my other life, but I don't remember when. I open it to a random page and read, "The inability to predict outliers implies the inability to predict the course of history." I close the book, put it in the window, and think, but what if you could predict history? What if you already lived it? The thing about knowing the future is that it doesn't actually make you rich. Not unless you have capital to start with. Not unless you're willing to make risky bets that could destroy you if you're wrong about the timing. And I don't have capital. I have $400 and an apartment with cheap rent and the knowledge that cryptocurrency is going to be a thing eventually, but I can't remember if Bitcoin was invented in 2009 or 2010, and I definitely can't remember how to buy it. So instead, I focus on the basics. I get a better job. Not a great job, just better. Data entry at a nonprofit that pays $14 an hour with health insurance. It's boring, mind-numbing work, but it's stable. And stability is what I need right now. I start saving money? Not a lot. Just enough. $50 a week, every week, no exceptions. I stop eating out, stop buying coffee, stop doing any of the small indulgences that add up to hundreds of dollars a month. It's not glamorous. It's not the kind of second chance story where the protagonist immediately strikes it rich and gets revenge on everyone who wronged them. It's just slow, methodical survival. But it works. By September, I have $1,000 saved. By December, $2,000. By the following March, I have enough to open a small investment account. I'm not stupid about it. I don't bet everything on one stock. I diversify. I buy shares in companies I know are going to survive the recession and come out stronger. Amazon, Google, Apple. The returns are modest at first, but they compound. Slowly, steadily, and all the while, I'm living in my grandmother's apartment, paying $472 a month, while everyone around me is drowning in rent they can't afford. I see Vanessa sometimes. The city is big, but the East Village is small. I run into her at cafes, at bars, at the farmer's market on weekends. We don't talk. We just acknowledge each other with the kind of polite nod you give to someone you used to know and would prefer to forget. She's still with the poet, the trust fund guy. I see them together sometimes, and he looks exactly how I remember. Thin and affected, and wearing a scarf in weather that doesn't require a scarf. They break up in 2011. I know because I see her posting about it online. Long rambling status updates about heartbreak and betrayal and how men are trash. Part of me wants to reach out, to say something, to tell her I understand. But I don't. Because the truth is, I don't care anymore. The person I was at 23, the one who would have signed over the lease out of love and hope and stupidity, is gone. Burned away by 15 years of poverty in a timeline that no longer exists, replaced by someone harder, colder, more pragmatic, someone who knows that love isn't enough, someone who's learned that survival comes first. By 2015, I have $50,000 in investments. By 2017, I have $150,000. I'm still living in the same apartment, still paying $472 a month, still working the same data entry job, though I've been promoted twice and now manage a small team. I could move to a better place, could get a bigger apartment, a nicer neighborhood. But why? The rent-controlled lease is the best insurance policy I have against the city's relentless inflation. Besides, I like it here. I like knowing my neighbors. I like the bodega downstairs where the owner's son knows my coffee order. I like the Polish restaurant where Mrs. Kowalski works part-time and gives me free pierogies because she thinks I'm too skinny. I like having roots. In 2018, the building gets sold. It happens quickly, the way these things do in New York. One day, there's a new management company, and the next day, there are renovations happening in the vacant units, and within a month, the empty apartments are listed on StreetEasy for $3,000 a month. $3,500 for the ones with updated kitchens, $4,000 for anything with a view. My neighbors start getting buyout offers, $10,000 to break their lease and move out, $20,000, $50,000. Mrs. Kowalski takes the money. So does the family on the second floor. And the guy in 3B who's been here since the 90s. One by one, the building empties out. But new tenants move in. Young professionals, tech workers, finance bros. People who can afford to pay market rate and don't understand what it means to lose a rent-controlled apartment in New York City. The management company comes to me last. They offer $75,000. I say no. They offer $100,000. I say no. They offer $150,000. And the guy making the offer looks at me like I'm insane. Like I'm turning down free money, like I don't understand basic economics. Mr. Chen, he says, and his voice has that barely concealed contempt that rich people use when talking to poor people who won't do what they want. This is a very generous offer. Your apartment would rent for $3,500 on the open market. That's over $3,000 more than you're paying now. You could take this money, move to a nicer neighborhood, upgrade your lifestyle. No, I say. You're being irrational. I'm being practical. If I take your money and move, I'll never be able to afford to live in Manhattan again. Do the math. $150,000 sounds like a lot, but it's only 3 years of rent at market rate. What happens after that? He blinks. You could invest it. I already invest. I don't need your money. What I need is housing security, and that's exactly what I have here. He leaves frustrated, and I know he's going to come back with a bigger offer. And I know I'm going to keep saying no, because the thing about rent control is that it's not just about the money. It's about power. It's about having something they can't take away from you. In 2019, I run into Vanessa at a gallery opening in Chelsea. I almost don't recognize her at first. She's cut her hair short, dyed it blonde. She's wearing expensive clothes, designer labels, the kind that cost more than I make in a month. She's thinner than I remember, harder around the edges. She's with someone, a woman this time, late 30s, sophisticated, the kind of person who looks at art and sees investment opportunities instead of beauty. Vanessa sees me across the room and our eyes meet, and for a moment neither of us knows what to do. Then she walks over. "David," she says, and her voice is different too. More polished, like she's been taking elocution lessons. "Vanessa." We stand there in awkward silence while people circulate around us with wine glasses and pretentious conversations about composition and negative space. "How have you been?" she asks finally. "Good. You?" "Good. Great, actually. I'm teaching now. Poetry. At Hunter College." "That's amazing. Congratulations." "Thanks." Another silence. "Look," she says, and now she sounds more like the Vanessa I remember, less polished, more real. "I've been thinking about you lately, about what happened with the apartment, okay? I was angry for a long time. I thought you were selfish, that you chose money over me. I know, but I get it now. I mean, I'm paying $2,800 a month for a one-bedroom in Bushwick, and it's a shithole. The landlord won't fix anything, and every year he raises the rent, and I'm trapped, you know? And I keep thinking about that apartment, your grandmother's place, $472. Do you know what I could do with the money I'd save?" I say nothing. I could save, I could invest. I could actually have a future instead of just treading water forever. "Yeah," I say quietly, "I know. So I guess what I'm saying is, you were right, and I was wrong, and I'm sorry for the things I said back then. It's the apology I wanted 10 years ago, the acknowledgement that I made the right choice, that keeping the apartment wasn't selfish but necessary, but hearing it now just makes me tired." "It's okay," I say. "We were both young. We were idiots. Maybe." She looks at me for a long moment, and I can see her doing the math, trying to figure out if there's any chance of rekindling what we had. But there isn't. We're different people now, shaped by different experiences, different choices, different lives. In the timeline that doesn't exist anymore, she destroyed me. In this timeline, I saved myself. And that changes everything. "Take care of yourself, Vanessa," I say. "You too, David." I walk away, and I don't look back. In 2024, the management company makes their final offer, $500,000. $500,000 to give up the apartment. The guy making the offer is younger than the last one, sharper, more aggressive. He sits across from me in my tiny living room, still decorated with the same furniture from 2009, still cramped and outdated and perfect. And he slides a contract across the coffee table like he's offering me salvation. "This is our final offer, Mr. Chen. Take it or leave it." I look at the contract. The number is right there in black and white. $500,000. It's more money than I ever imagined having. More money than my grandmother made in her entire life. More money than most people in this city will ever see at once. And it's not enough. No, I say. The guy's jaw tightens. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Do you have any idea what this apartment could rent for? $4,000? $4,500? You're sitting on a gold mine and refusing to cash in. I'm sitting on a home. There's a difference. A home you'll never be able to upgrade, never be able to leave. You'll be stuck here forever. Good. He stares at me like I've lost my mind, and maybe I have. Maybe holding on to this apartment for 15 years, paying $472 a month while the rest of the city spirals into unaffordability has driven me insane. But I don't think so. I think it's the sanest thing I've ever done. Let me explain something to you, I say. Whoa, leaning forward. In 2009, I almost gave this apartment to someone I loved. I almost signed it away because I thought love was more important than security, that we'd figure out the rest together. And if I had done that, I would have spent the next 15 years homeless, or nearly homeless, or living so far from the city that I might as well be in another state. I would have lost everything. My home, my neighborhood, my connection to the place I've lived my entire life. That's very poetic, he says dryly. But this is business. Exactly. And my business is staying here. So you can offer me $1 million, $2 million, $10 million. The answer is still no. He stands up, grabs his briefcase. You're a fool. Probably. But I'm a fool with housing security in Manhattan. How many people can say that? He leaves without another word. And I know he won't be back. They've tried everything. Buyouts, harassment, strategic renovations that make the building less comfortable for rent-controlled tenants. But I'm not going anywhere. This apartment is mine. It's 2025, and I'm 39 years old. I wake up in the same apartment I've lived in for 16 years. In this timeline, at least. 31 years, if you count the life I don't talk about. The one that exists only in my memory. The morning light comes through the windows facing East 3rd Street, and I can hear the city waking up. Garbage trucks, car horns, someone's radio playing salsa music too loud for 7 a.m. I make coffee in the kitchen, stepping around the bathtub that's still covered with its wooden board. I've thought about renovating, about putting in a real bathroom, but that would mean dealing with the management company and permits and inspections, and I've learned that sometimes the best move is no move at all. My phone buzzes. Not a flip phone anymore. I upgraded to a smartphone eventually, though I held out longer than most people. Old habits die hard. It's an email from my financial advisor. My investment portfolio has crossed $2 million. $2 million. I close the email without responding. The money is nice, the security is nice, but it's not why I kept the apartment. I kept it because it's mine, because in a city that's constantly trying to push people like me out, having this place means I get to stay. I get to be part of the neighborhood. I get to watch it change and resist and evolve without being erased from it. I kept it because Vanessa was right about one thing. All those years ago, the apartment is worth it. Just not for the reasons she thought. I finish my coffee and get ready for work. I quit the data entry job years ago. Started my own business doing freelance consulting. It pays well enough, keeps me busy, gives me flexibility. On my way out, I run into Mrs. Kowalski's grandson in the hallway. He's visiting from New Jersey, here to clean out her apartment now that she's in assisted living. Mr. Chen, he says, stopping me, can I ask you something? Sure. How long have you lived here? Since 2009. Well, technically, my grandmother lived here since the 70s, and I inherited the lease. He shakes his head. Rent control? Yeah. You know what they're asking for these apartments now? $5,000 a month. $5,000 for the same space my grandmother paid $300 for. I know. How do you do it? How do you stay sane in a city like this? I consider the question, how do I stay sane? How do I reconcile the fact that I'm one of the lucky ones, that I have something most people will never have, that my security is built on an accident of timing and inheritance and sheer stubborn refusal to let go? I remember what it cost the first time, I say, and I make sure it never costs that much again. He looks confused, but he doesn't ask for clarification. I leave the building and walk toward the subway, and the city is alive around me, people rushing to work, Vendors setting up fruit stands, tourists taking photos of street art. This is my city. Not because I was born here, though I was. Not because I'm rich, because I'm not. But because I fought for the right to stay when everything and everyone was telling me to leave. And I won. It's 2026 now. 17 years since I walked into Morris Steinberg's office and refused to sign. Vanessa sends me a Facebook message out of the blue. We're not friends on social media, haven't been for years, but the platform still lets people message each other if they're determined enough. The message is short. I saw an article about rent-controlled apartments in Manhattan. They interviewed tenants who've lived in the same place for decades. I immediately thought of you. Are you still there? I stare at the message for a while, trying to decide if I should respond. Finally, I type, "Yeah, still here. 4C at 247 East 3rd. Her reply comes fast. "How much are you paying?" $472. There's a long pause. I can see the typing indicator appear and disappear multiple times, like she's writing and deleting responses, trying to find the right words. Finally, I'm paying $3,400 for a studio in Bed-Stuy. I've been evicted twice. I have no savings. I'm one bad month away from having to leave the city entirely. I read the message 3 times. I could say I'm sorry. I could offer sympathy. I could pretend that her suffering means something to me beyond the abstract awareness that lots of people are struggling. But the truth is, I don't feel bad for her. Because in another timeline, one that she doesn't remember and I can never forget, she made her choice. She took the apartment and kicked me out and left me with nothing. In this timeline, I made a different choice. And she's living with the consequences of a decision she never got to make. I type, "I'm sorry you're going through that. Housing in this city is brutal." Another pause. Then, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd signed that day? If we'd stayed together?" I think about it more than I'd like to admit. In quiet moments, late at night, when the city is as close to silent as it ever gets, I sometimes wonder if I made the right choice. If keeping the apartment was worth losing her, losing the possibility of love, losing the version of myself that still believed in partnership and shared futures. But then I remember the other timeline. I remember sleeping in my car. I remember the shame of asking friends for loans I could never repay. I remember the slow erosion of dignity that comes from being broke in an expensive city, from being constantly reminded that you don't belong, that you're a relic of a different era, that the future has no place for people like you. And I know I made the right choice. No, I type. I don't think about it. We were different people back then. It wouldn't have worked. Her response takes a long time. "You're probably right. Take care of yourself, David. You too." I close the chat and put down my phone. Outside my window, the city continues its relentless transformation. Buildings rise and fall, businesses open and close. People come and go, chasing dreams and opportunities that may or may not exist. But I'm still here, in my grandmother's apartment, paying $472 a month, and I plan to stay here for the rest of my life. Not because I'm stubborn, though I am. Not because I'm cheap, though I'm that too. But because this apartment represents something that's increasingly rare in New York City. The right to remain. The right to exist in a place without constantly justifying your presence through economic productivity. The right to have a home that can't be taken away by landlords or market forces or bad luck. I gave up love for that right. And I'd do it again. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder about the other people, the ones from the timeline that doesn't exist anymore. In that first life, the one I lived before I came back, I wasn't the only one struggling. The city was full of us. People who'd been displaced by rising rents, gentrification, economic forces we couldn't control or predict. What happened to them in this timeline? Did they make different choices because I made different choices? Did the butterfly effect of me keeping my apartment somehow ripple outward, changing their lives too? Or are they still suffering, still fighting, still losing the same battles they lost before? I'll never know. But I think about it. I think about Marcus, the guy who used to work at the bodega downstairs. In my first life, he lost his job in 2011 when the bodega got sold to a chain. He ended up homeless, last I heard, dead by 2018. In this timeline, the bodega is still there, still owned by the same family, and Marcus still works there, Older now, grayer, but alive. Did I save him? Or was he always going to make it? I think about Sarah, the woman who lived in 3B. In my first life, she took the buyout in 2016 and moved to Pennsylvania, died in a car accident 6 months later. In this timeline, why, she took the buyout in 2018 and moved to North Carolina. As far as I know, she's still alive. Did I change that? Or would she have survived anyway? The questions haunt me. Because the thing about time travel, or rebirth, or whatever this is that you can never be sure what you changed and what would have happened regardless. You can never be sure if you're a hero or just a lucky bastard who happened to make one good decision at the right moment. All you can do is live with the choices you made and hope they were the right ones. In March 2026, a journalist from the New York Times contacts me. They're doing a story about the last rent-controlled tenants in Manhattan. There aren't many left. Maybe a few thousand out of millions of apartments. We're relics, anomalies, and ghosts from an era when the city actually tried to protect people from market forces. The journalist is young, maybe 25, and she has the earnest intensity of someone who believes journalism can change the world. Her name is Emma, and she shows up at my apartment with a notebook and a digital recorder and questions she's clearly spent weeks preparing. "How long have you lived here?" she asks, settling onto my ancient couch. 17 years? But my grandmother had the lease before me, since 1974. "And you pay $472 a month." She writes this down, though I'm sure she already knew it. "Do you feel guilty?" "About what?" "About paying so little when everyone else is paying so much? About having something most people can only dream of?" It's a good question, an honest question. "Sometimes," I say. But guilt doesn't change anything. The system is broken. The city has chosen to prioritize profit over people, development over community. My apartment isn't the problem. The problem is that there aren't more apartments like mine. But you could sell. You could take a buyout and free up the apartment for someone else. And then what? Where would I go? You think I could afford market rate on my income? Even with the buyout money, I'd be priced out in a few years, and the apartment wouldn't go to someone who needs it. It would go to some finance bro or tech worker or whoever else can afford $5,000 a month. She nods, makes notes. "Have you ever thought about leaving the city?" "Every day. But this is my home. I was born here. My family has been here for 3 generations. Why should I be the one who has to leave? Because the city is changing. Because maybe that's just the reality now. Reality is what we make it," I say, and I'm choosing to stay. She asks more questions about my work, my life, my plans for the future. I answer honestly, or as honestly as I can without mentioning the timeline that doesn't exist, the life I lived and erased and remember only in dreams. When she's done, she turns off the recorder and looks around the apartment. "It's smaller than I thought it would be," she says. "Most things are. But it's yours." "Yeah, it's mine." She leaves, and I know the article will paint me as either a villain or a victim, depending on the editorial slant. That's how these stories always go. Nuance doesn't sell newspapers, but I don't care. Let them write what they want. I'm staying. The article comes out in May. It's titled, "The Last Tenants, New York's Rent-Controlled Holdouts and the City That Wants Them Gone." I'm mentioned by name, which I didn't expect. There's a photo of me standing in front of my building, looking tired and defiant in equal measure. The comments section explodes. Half the people call me a hero, a symbol of resistance against gentrification and corporate greed. The other half call me a parasite, a leech, someone who's gaming the system and preventing young people from accessing affordable housing. Both sides miss the point. I'm not a hero, I'm not a villain, I'm just someone who made a choice and stuck with it. But the article changes things. Suddenly, everyone knows about my apartment, about the $472, about the fact that I've been here for 17 years and plan to stay for 17 more. I start getting messages, emails from housing activists who want me to speak at rallies, DMs from documentary filmmakers who want to tell my story, phone calls from lawyers representing tenants in other rent-controlled buildings who think I can help their cases. I ignore most of them, but one email catches my attention. It's from Vanessa. "I read the article," she writes. "I didn't realize you'd become some kind of folk hero. Congratulations, I guess." There's a pause in the email, a space where I can feel her trying to decide how much to say. Then, I've been thinking about something. About that day in the lawyer's office. I always wondered why you changed your mind so suddenly. It didn't make sense. You were so in love with me. And then suddenly you weren't. And reading this article, I realized you knew something I didn't. You saw something coming that I couldn't see. Didn't you? I stare at the email for a long time. She's right, of course. I did know something she didn't. I knew exactly how things would turn out if I gave her the apartment. I knew she would betray me, abandon me, leave me with nothing. But I can't tell her that. I can't explain about the rebirth, the second chance, the timeline where she destroyed me and I spent 15 years paying for it. So instead, I write, I just realized that keeping the apartment was more important than keeping you. Sorry if that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Her response comes an hour later. I get it. I really do. I'm sorry for everything that happened between us. I'm sorry I didn't understand what you were trying to protect. I closed the email without responding. Some apologies come too late to matter. In August, the management company tries a different tactic. They send a lawyer, not just any lawyer, a partner at one of those white shoe firms that charge $1,000 an hour and have offices in buildings with marble lobbies and doormen who look at you like you're trespassing even when you have an appointment. His name is Richard something or other, and he shows up at my door in a suit that probably costs more than I make in a month. "Mr. Chen?" he says, extending a hand. "I represent the ownership of this building. May I come in?" Do I have a choice? Of course, but I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. I let him in because I'm curious. Because I want to know what new angle they're trying. Because after 17 years of saying no, I'm confident I can say it again. He doesn't sit, just stands in the middle of my small living room, looking around with the kind of professional assessment that real estate people perfect, calculating square footage, noting the condition of the floors, mentally redesigning the space to maximize rental income. "I'll be direct," he says. "The ownership wants you out. They're willing to pay $750,000 for you to vacate within 60 days. $750,000. $750,000. Enough to buy a house in most of America. Enough to retire early. Enough to never worry about money again." "No," I say. He doesn't look surprised. "I thought you might say that." "No. So I'm prepared to offer you something else." "There's nothing else I want." "How about this? You keep the apartment. We don't raise your rent. We don't harass you. We don't try to buy you out again. In exchange, you sign an agreement stating that when you die or vacate, the apartment returns to market rate. No inheritance, no passing it to family. It dies with you." I study his face. He's good at this. No emotion, no tells, just pure negotiation. Why would I agree to that? Because it gives you security for the rest of your life. And it gives us certainty. We know eventually we'll get the apartment back. Everyone wins. Except any future tenant who might have inherited it. You don't have children, Mr. Chen. According to our research, you're not even in a relationship. Who would you leave it to? He's done his homework. I'll give him that. But he's wrong about one thing. I do have someone I could leave it to. Not a child, not a partner, but someone who deserves it more than anyone. The question is, do I trust the management company to keep their word? "I'll think about it," I say. "I need an answer by Friday." "Then you'll have to wait until Friday." He leaves his card, heavy stock, embossed lettering, the kind of business card that's designed to impress and intimidate. I throw it in the trash. I spend the next 3 days thinking about the lawyer's offer. $750,000. Or security for life, with the guarantee that when I'm gone, the apartment goes back to market rate. It's a good deal, objectively speaking. Better than I have now, which is just the hope that the city won't find some loophole to evict me. Some legal technicality that invalidates my lease. But it also means I can't pass this on. Can't give someone else the chance I had. Can't create a legacy beyond my own survival. On Thursday evening, I go to the bodega downstairs. Marcus is behind the counter, ringing up a customer, and when he sees me, he nods in that way he has. Just a slight tilt of the head, acknowledgement without performance. I grab a coffee from the machine in the back, wait until the customer leaves. "Marcus," I say, "can I ask you something?" "Sure, man. What's up?" "If someone offered you a lot of money to give up something valuable, something you could never replace, would you take it?" He thinks about this, stroking his chin. "Depends." How much money? Enough to never worry about money again. And what's the thing I'm giving up? Security? Stability. The ability to pass something on to the next generation. He laughs, but it's not a happy sound. Man, I don't got nothing to pass on anyway. I'd take the money. Yeah? Yeah, because money is real. Future generations? That's abstract. You can't eat abstract. I pay for the coffee and leave, but his words stay with me. You can't eat abstract. He's right, of course. Ideals don't pay bills. Principles don't keep you warm at night. But they're also all we have. The things we choose to protect, even when it costs us. Especially when it costs us. On Friday morning, I call the lawyer. Mr. Chen, he says, and I can hear the anticipation in his voice. Have you made a decision? I have. The answer is no. Silence. Then, may I ask why? Because the apartment isn't just mine. It's part of a history that's disappearing from this city. It's part of a time when New York actually tried to protect people from being priced out of their own neighborhoods. And if I sign your agreement, I'm helping erase that history, so no. I'm not doing it. You're making a mistake. Probably, but it's my mistake to make. I hang up. And that's the end of it. Or so I think. 3 months later, I'm diagnosed with cancer. Nothing dramatic, nothing sudden, just a routine checkup that reveals something suspicious, followed by a biopsy, followed by a consultation with an oncologist who uses words like treatable and manageable and 5-year survival rate. I'm 40 years old. I have rent-controlled apartment in Manhattan and $2 million in investments and a disease that might kill me or might not. The oncologist is optimistic. Caught it early, she says, with treatment. Your prognosis is good. But good isn't certain, and uncertainty changes everything. I start thinking about what happens to the apartment when I'm gone. In New York, rent-controlled leases can be inherited by family members if they've been living in the apartment for at least 2 years. But I don't have family, no siblings, no children, no partner. I have friends, but none close enough to claim succession rights. Which means when I die, the apartment reverts to the landlord. $472 becomes $4,000. Everything I fought for, everything I preserved, gone. Unless I spend a week researching tenant law, reading cases, consulting with a housing lawyer who specializes in rent-controlled apartments. There's a precedent, the lawyer tells me. She's in her 60s, probably fought these battles since the 80s. And she has the weary determination of someone who knows the game is rigged but plays anyway. If you can establish that someone has been living with you as family, even if they're not blood relatives, they may have succession rights. What counts as family? Spouse, obviously, domestic partner, but also dependent relatives, individuals with emotional and financial commitment and interdependence. The courts have interpreted it broadly in some cases. So if I let someone move in, if they've been here for 2 years, contribute to the household, can demonstrate family-like relationship, yes, they might have a case. I thank her and leave, and I start thinking about who deserves this apartment more than anyone. Her name is Maria, and she's 24 years old. I meet her at the community center, where I volunteer on weekends. So I'm teaching basic financial literacy to people who never learned it in school. She's taking my class because she's trying to figure out how to escape the cycle she's trapped in. Working 2 jobs, living with 3 roommates in a converted living room in the Bronx, sending money home to her family in Ecuador every month. She reminds me of myself at that age. Not physically, she's short and round where I'm tall and thin, dark-skinned where I'm pale, but in the determination, the refusal to give up even when everything is stacked against her. After class one day, she stays late to ask questions. Mr. Chen, she says, and her English is good but accented. This thing you said about investing, I don't understand. How can I invest when I have no money? You start small, $10 a month, $20 if you can manage it. But I need every dollar? For rent, for food, for my family. I know. But if you don't start now, you'll never have savings. And without savings, you'll always be one emergency away from disaster. She nods, but I can see the frustration in her eyes. The same frustration I felt at her age, when people with money told me to just save more, as if it were that simple. Can I tell you something? I say. Okay. When I was your age, I inherited a rent-controlled apartment, $472 a month, and everyone told me to give it up, to be generous, to share it with someone I loved. And I almost did, but I didn't, and that decision saved my life. She's listening intently now. The point is, I continue, sometimes the most important thing you can do is protect what you have. Not because you're selfish, but because no one else is going to protect it for you. She thinks about this. You still have this apartment? Yeah. And you still pay $400? $472. Her eyes widen. In Manhattan? In the East Village. That's impossible. It's rare, but it's real. She's quiet for a long moment, then, "You're very lucky, Mr. Chen." "I know." After that, we start talking more. She tells me about her life, growing up in Quito, coming to New York at 18, working in restaurants and retail stores, and anywhere else that will hire someone without papers. She tells me about her dreams, to go to college, to become a teacher, to make enough money that her younger siblings don't have to struggle the way she has. She reminds me so much of myself that it hurts. And one day, 6 months after we first met, I make a decision. "Maria," I say, "I have a proposition for you." She moves in on a Saturday in January. She doesn't have much. 2 suitcases, a box of books, a laptop that's held together with duct tape. Everything she owns fits in the corner of my living room that I've cleared out for her. "This is temporary," I tell her, even though we both know it's not. "Just until you save enough for your own place." She nods, but she's looking around the apartment with the kind of wonder I remember from my own first day here. $472, she says quietly, "split between us, $236 each." "That's less than I pay for my corner of the living room in the Bronx." "I know." She turns to me. "Why are you doing this?" It's the question I've been expecting, the one I've been trying to answer to myself. "Because someone should benefit from this besides me," I say. "Because the whole point of rent control was to help people like you stay in the city. Because I'm sick and I might die, and if I do, I want this apartment to go to someone who needs it, not back to the landlord." "You're sick?" "Cancer. I'm fine for now, but..." I shrug. Nothing's guaranteed. She sits down on the futon, and I can see her doing the math, calculating what this means. "If I live here for 2 years," she says slowly, "and we can prove I'm family, then you might be able to inherit the lease when I'm gone." "Might?" "There's no guarantee. The landlord will fight it. You'll need a lawyer, but there's a chance." "Why me?" "Because you deserve it. Because you're working 3 times as hard as people who were born with advantages you'll never have. Because the city is better with people like you in it." She's crying now, and I don't know what to say, so I just wait. "Thank you," she says finally. "Thank you, Mr. Chen. Call me David." Living with Maria is strange at first. I've been alone for so long that I've forgotten how to share space with another person, how to negotiate bathroom time and kitchen use, and whose turn it is to take out the trash. But we figure it out. She works mornings at a cafe in Soho, afternoons at a tutoring center, evenings taking online classes toward her associate's degree. I work from home, consulting, managing my investments, trying to keep the cancer at bay with chemotherapy and positive thinking and all the other tools the oncologist gives me. We develop routines. Coffee together at 6 a.m. before she leaves for her first shift. Dinner at 8 when she gets home. Taking turns cooking. Her teaching me Ecuadorian recipes. Me teaching her the Chinese dishes my grandmother used to make. Weekends at the community center. Both of us volunteering. Both of us trying to give back something to the neighborhood that's given us so much. It's not romantic. It's not even particularly close. We're roommates, housemates, 2 people sharing space and resources out of mutual benefit. But slowly, it becomes something more. Family, not in the traditional sense, not blood or marriage or any of the legal definitions, but in the way that matters. Mutual support, shared burdens, the quiet understanding that we're both trying to survive in a city that doesn't want us. One night, about 8 months in, she comes home late from her tutoring job and finds me on the couch. Exhausted from a chemo session, too tired to even make dinner. She doesn't say anything, just goes to the kitchen, makes soup, brings it to me on a tray. "Eat," she says. "I'm not hungry." "Eat anyway. You need strength." I eat, and sitting there, in my grandmother's apartment, sharing soup with this young woman who's become the closest thing I have to family, I realize something. This was always the point. Not keeping the apartment for myself, not hoarding it like some kind of prize, but using it to help someone else the way it helped me. Passing on the gift. I die on a Tuesday in November. At least that's what the oncologist projections suggested would happen if the treatment didn't work. But I don't die. The cancer goes into remission. And life continues. Maria graduates with her associate's degree. Gets accepted to Hunter College for her bachelor's. Keeps working, keeps studying, keeps living in the apartment with me, paying her half of the rent every month without fail. We've been living together for 2 years and 3 months when the management company makes their move. They send an inspector, then a lawyer, then a notice stating that Maria is an unauthorized occupant and must vacate within 30 days or face eviction. They know? Maria says, holding the notice with shaking hands. They know what we're trying to do. Of course they know. They've been watching. What do? We fight. We hire the housing lawyer, the one I consulted 2 years ago. She's expensive, but I can afford it now. $2 million in investments buys you good legal representation. The case is simple on paper. Maria has been living in the apartment for over 2 years. She contributes to household expenses. We share meals, responsibilities, our lives. Under New York law, she qualifies for succession rights. But the management company argues that our relationship is fraudulent, that I only let her move in to circumvent the lease terms, that she's not real family, just a tenant paying rent. The hearing is scheduled for March. The courtroom is smaller than I expected. Just a hearing room, really. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge who looks like she's heard this exact case 1,000 times before. Our lawyer presents the evidence. Bank statements showing shared expenses, photos of us at community events, testimony from neighbors about our household. The management company's lawyer counters with suspicion. Why would a 41-year-old man let a young woman live with him if not for financial gain? Why the sudden generosity after years of living alone? Mr. Chen, the judge says, looking directly at me, can you explain your relationship with Miss Alvarez? I stand, clear my throat. She's my family, I say, but not blood family. No, but family isn't just blood. It's the people you choose to support, the people who support you. Maria and I have built a life together in that apartment. We share resources, responsibilities, hopes. She takes care of me when I'm sick. I help her with school. That's family. And you expect the court to believe this isn't just an arrangement to circumvent lease regulations? I expect the court to recognize that families come in all forms. And that the purpose of succession rights is to protect people who've made a home together, regardless of their legal relationship. The judge makes notes. The management company's lawyer objects, cites precedent, argues that allowing this would open the floodgates to fraud. Our lawyer counters. It goes on for 3 hours. And then the judge makes her ruling. I find that Miss Alvarez has established sufficient grounds for succession rights under New York tenant law. The emotional and financial interdependence demonstrated is consistent with family relationships recognized by this court. The lease transfer is approved. Maria gasps beside me. The management company's lawyer immediately files an appeal. But we've won, at least for now. The appeal takes 6 months. 6 months of uncertainty, of living day to day wondering if the decision will be reversed, if Maria will be evicted, if everything we've built will be taken away. But in September, the appeals court upholds the ruling. Maria officially inherits the lease, $472 a month. She can stay in the apartment for the rest of her life if she wants to. She can have what I had, security, stability, a chance to build something in a city that usually destroys people like us. I don't know what to say, she tells me, and she's crying again, the way she did the day she moved in. You don't have to say anything. This is everything. This changes everything. I know. I can finish school without working 3 jobs. I can save money. I can bring my sister here, help her the way you helped me. That's the idea. She hugs me and I let her. And for the first time in 17 years in this timeline, 32 in my memory, I feel like I've done something right. Not just survived, not just protected myself, but actually helped someone. Actually made a difference. I'm 55 years old now. It's 2040, and I still live in the same apartment. Maria moved out 5 years ago. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She's a teacher now, married to another teacher, and they bought a house in Queens using the money she saved from years of rent-controlled living. She tried to give me the apartment back, said it should return to me since I'm the one who made it possible, but I refused. It's yours, I told her. Pass it on to someone who needs it the way you did. So she did. Her younger sister lives there now, studying engineering at Columbia, paying $472 a month, adjusted for the minimal increases allowed under rent control. The building is full of market-rate tenants paying $6,000 a month. But apartment 4C remains. A pocket of resistance. A reminder that the city wasn't always this way. That it doesn't have to be. I live in Brooklyn now, in a small apartment I bought using the money from my investments. It's nice, comfortable. More space than I need, but sometimes I take the F train back to the East Village, walk past 247 East 3rd Street, and look up at the 4th floor windows. The bodega is still there. Marcus retired, but his son runs it now. The Polish restaurant closed years ago, replaced by a craft cocktail bar. The neighborhood has changed the way neighborhoods always do, but apartment 4C remains, and sometimes, late at night, I think about Vanessa. Wonder what happened to her, where she ended up, if she's still in the city, or if she finally gave up and moved somewhere cheaper, somewhere easier, somewhere that doesn't demand everything you have just to survive. I check social media sometimes, see that she's in California now, teaching at a community college, posted a photo last year of her garden, tomatoes growing in raised beds, sun streaming through the frame. She looks happy, or at least she looks like someone who's found peace. And I'm happy for her, because in the end, we both made choices. She chose love and lost security. I chose security and lost love. And neither of us was wrong exactly. We just wanted different things. The city lights are beautiful from my Brooklyn apartment. Manhattan spreads out across the river like a promise. Like a threat, like everything it's always been. I'm 55 years old. I have enough money to be comfortable. I have friends, work, purpose, but I don't have the apartment anymore. And that's okay, because I gave it to someone who needed it more. Someone who will pass it on to someone else. Someone who will keep the chain unbroken. The rent control lease from 1974, still active, still protecting, still mattering. Life didn't unfold like the wind. It unfolded like New York City, relentless, expensive, beautiful, cruel, and occasionally, against all odds, generous. I made a choice 17 years ago, 32 years in my memory, and I've lived with it ever since. Some days I wonder what would have happened if I'd signed the lease over to Vanessa, if we'd stayed together, built a life, maybe even been happy. But those thoughts don't haunt me anymore, because I know the truth. The apartment was never just about money. It was about having a place in the world that couldn't be taken away. It was about survival. And I survived. We all did. The city remains. And so do we.